We'll continue with reports with Ms. Howard.
Yes, so again, yes, thank you to everyone who volunteered for the Human Services Holiday Gift Drive for meeting that tremendous need. Also, just a quick note that Randy Carter, who has for 23 years served the municipality as a health inspector, is retiring this week. So a changing of the guard in the health department. We will miss him. Thank you.
Will he come to the recognition next week?
Oh, I hope so. This is his last week. I don't know whether he's happy to leave. I don't know. That's a good question. I'll reach out and make sure he feels invited.
Ms. Miller, any reports? Mr. Miller, any reports?
Yes, I'd like to report on something that perhaps not many people here tonight or watching at home are familiar with. And that is that each year the municipality publishes a list of properties where the property taxes are delinquent and where the properties are listed for a tax lien sale. There were 31 such properties listed in the notice this year. I want to emphasize that list is a fluid list in that in many instances people will come in on the final day for payment of property tax and pay the property tax that is due, and the list generally decreases, and in talking to our CFO, that has already started to occur this year. However, a disturbing aspect of the list is that many of the properties were in a historic district, in the historic district that we most recently designated as our most recent historic district, namely the Witherspoon-Jackson district. And that gave pause to me and perhaps to others about whether or not there is the possibility that some of those properties may be lost in terms of properties purchased for tax lien and subsequently foreclosed if the lien is not remitted by the property owner. And as a result, I've initiated discussions with our administrator, and although we have not yet concluded on how this might be approached, we're looking at ways where the municipality might be of assistance in making certain that there are not foreclosures on properties that are up for tax lien, and that in particular properties that are important to the community as being perhaps the most affordable in the community are not lost to the community and lost to outside investors. So this is something that we will continue to look at, and we will look once again after the final date for payment of property taxes, which is the 10th of November. We'll look at the following week, and depending upon the outcome, we may try to formulate some plan of action on the part of the municipality.
Ms. Lindner? Ms. Butler?
I was just going to report that we had yet another Mary Moss committee meeting this afternoon, and I just hope we're on the agenda for next week, for December 5th. I think that's been the date we've been talking about.
Yep, you're right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's tentatively on there.
Yeah. Just to make a presentation, which is all that I think needs to happen.
Mr. Simon?
No reports.
Okay. I had a few reports. First was it the week before last week was the New Jersey League of Municipalities conference, and Princeton was well represented there. I was part of two panels, one on consolidation that was very well received, and also another on the mayor's wellness campaign.
Who else was on the panel? Consolidation.
There were a couple communities that had done police consolidations. There was a representative from the DCA. Greg Fehrenbach was on the panel. So there were a lot of good questions and a lot of interest, too. I was actually surprised because they put us at the very, very last session on the last day, and I figured everybody would have left town, but we filled the room, and actually there, I think, were a couple people standing even. So that was good, and there was a lot of excitement about Princeton, and, I think oftentimes in the state we're talked of in terms of Princeton exceptionalism with that, and I think consolidation has worked well here, and I think there is interest in other communities too. It's just we know it is a tough row ahead for anybody who wants to try it, but I think it's worth it. Was also on a panel about the Mayor's Wellness Campaign, talking about Princeton's efforts with a program called Conversation of Your Life, about end-of-life planning, and that was also well received, and it was really interesting to hear what other communities were doing in terms of public health outreach in other areas as well. And Mr. DeShield and I both attended a session on economic development that we can put our notes together for that and share with the Economic Development Task Force. I think there were some news we can use from that, and overall it was a really great conference. And then there's also a meeting of the entrepreneurship group that's working with Princeton University. We heard a preliminary report from the One Roof team. This is a group of students working with our affordable housing providers to both simplify and humanize the application process, and they've been terrific. Everybody who's worked with them, I think, has been energized by their work, and they're still working on the project, but I hope to be able to have them into council at some point too, when they're ready to present something that's further along. And I'll let Deanna report on the neighborhood meeting we had with the Harrison Street neighbors, and also the Nassau Street streetscape meeting last week.
Thank you, Mayor. Also, at the League of Municipalities, Princeton's engineering department was recognized with a Project of the Year award from the Society of Municipal Engineers for the Mount Lucas Road project. So that was a great honor. It was for Bob Kaiser and Princeton as well. Last week we had two neighborhood meetings. The first meeting was for the Harrison Street traffic signal project. That's our federal Safe Routes to School project, where we are replacing traffic signals at Harrison and Hamilton and Harrison and Franklin. We had quite a few of the adjacent neighbors to those intersections in attendance at the meeting. There was some concern and discussion about the need to have an audible sound associated with the pedestrian crossing buttons, but we are getting more feedback from the design engineers, and we'll be putting that information up on the website and letting those residents know where to find it. Also, we had a meeting for the Nassau Streetscape project to get additional feedback, and that was fairly well attended, and our consultant LRK will be able to wrap up that design guideline report, and we'll look to bring it to council next year for adoption. Just two other notes. Valley Road temporary striping is in progress. They started today, and then the striping company will be back on Thursday and Friday to finish up. This is going to be the temporary paint striping for the center line and the crosswalks, and after we put the final pavement on next year, we'll get the permanent striping in place. That's it for me.
Can I ask a question, Deanna? You said that the LRK report on the Nassau streetscape will come back to council for approval?
I think that's the next step, is that we would bring it to council for some sort of an adoption, because it is
we've already
design
applied for-
guidelines for the streetscape for future projects.
Right, but we've already applied for a grant based on what we had, right?
Correct.
Okay. Do you think that at any point it would be possible, or whether there would be any interest on council in looking at some of the recommendations that were made as part of that, to peel off and just do whether we do a full streetscape or not? I mean, I think the bike corrals, with a small investment, since we've seen how much a little small investment and difference it can make with invasive species, maybe we can make the same investment downtown. But if we could do some of the planters and some of the greening up, it just didn't look like it would take all that much money, but I could be wrong.
We can definitely look at that, and then I'll let Mark answer as well, but the engineering department has also applied for a micro grant to purchase materials that would help us create those bike corrals, the temporary stanchions. We're also looking at purchasing other items that will help us evaluate traffic calming. We were looking at some rubber pads that would take the place of raised speed humps or that type of thing. So we can definitely look at that related to the Nassau streetscape and the bike corrals, and I'll turn it over to Mark for the rest.
Sure. One of the things that we wanted to do as part of this process is have that palette and be able to use it for just what you're talking about. And that means anytime we make improvements, we should be referring back to that palette of different either trash cans, the bike corrals, as we make those improvements. And I think that's the right way to use this plan, instead of just kind of a plan that sits on the shelf. It's something that we use constantly whenever we make improvements on the streetscape.
I would add that the thing that's the most oohs and ahs is the newspaper rack. So I would put that towards the top. And then the other interesting piece of information I thought that came from the study is that the mailboxes that sort of greenish, brownish color are not even used anymore by the Postal Service. And so that's also something that probably doesn't cost much money at all if we can just get those removed and free up room on the street. And then did you want to talk about the meeting with DOT about the 206 bridges? I know we have a resolution about that later in the agenda.
Sure. Sorry, I was thinking that I covered that maybe at the last meeting.
Maybe you did.
We had the meeting with New Jersey Department of Transportation regarding their schedule for the construction of the new Stony Brook bridges, or the replacement Stony Brook bridges. They're looking to have a potentially 2-week overnight closure in January for moving of the aerial utility lines, subject to weather, and then the full closure, the 4-month closure, would be starting June 30th and continuing to October 28th of 2017. We've been reviewing plans. HPC has the plans as well to do a final review, and we're working with police to confirm that the detour routes will be properly signed and managed to get the most compliance with trucks and other vehicles.
And we do have a resolution. This mimics the one we passed a while back when we thought that the work was going to occur before the shutdown order, allowing for the extended workday. Okay, are there any other staff reports?